Hi, and welcome to Anne's Family Recipe. Today I'm making filet mignon croissant sandwiches. This video is sponsored by the Pennsylvania Beef Council, and I am so excited to be working with them again today. So for today's recipe, I am sharing with you a filet mignon sandwich on top of a buttery croissant. Now this recipe comes from a really wonderful food memory that my husband and I share. Way back when we first got married, about 10 years ago, we would go to this restaurant called Rachel's Roadhouse, and they had a sandwich that was simply called filet slices. And it was thinly sliced filet mignon on top of a garlic butter brushed croissant with provolone cheese melting all over the top, and it was amazing. So I'm gonna recreate that here today in my kitchen. Beef tenderloin, also known as filet mignon, is one of my absolute favorite cuts of beef. So for today's recipe, I headed to my grocery store to shop for some filet mignon. Typically, filet mignon is a more expensive cut of beef. A great way to get the most bang for your buck is to incorporate it into a salad or a sandwich. Instead of serving an entire steak to each family member, a smaller amount of flavorful, nutritious beef is integrated onto each plate, allowing you to stretch your supply to feed more people or to star in multiple meals. Also, you should always keep your eyes out for sales around holidays for beef tenderloin. You can stock up at a great price and freeze your beef for future use. BeefIt'sWhat'sForDinner.com is a fantastic resource for information about all cuts of beef. I searched for filet mignon and discovered cooking methods, nutritional facts, and even specific recipes for this particular steak. Today, I've chosen to sous vide my filet mignon and then pan sear it in my cast iron skillet. If you do not have a precision cooker to sous vide your steak, there are plenty of other methods for preparing your filet mignon that will yield very delicious results. Here is a quick look at my precision cooker. It just inserts into the little holder inside a large pot of water, and then I have an app on my phone where I can type in the style of meat that I'm making, and it will give me a suggested cooking time for the doneness that I'm looking for. So I prefer my steak to be cooked to about medium, so I'm setting my precision cooker to 139.5 degrees, and it's going to slowly bring the water up to temperature. So now I'm seasoning up my steaks with a little bit of coarse salt and freshly ground black pepper. And then these go into a gallon-size Ziplock bag. Don't forget to wash your hands with soap and warm water before and after handling raw beef. I like to add a splash of olive oil into my Ziploc bag so that the meat can move around easily inside. And then since I don't have an official vacuum sealer, I use the water displacement method to get all of the water out of the bag. You just slowly submerge it into the hot water, zip the top, and it's like you vacuum seal the bag. And if you need to, you can clip it to the edge of your pot too so that it doesn't float around and bump into the precision cooker. My steaks were submerged at the perfect temperature for about 45 minutes. While my steak finishes up, I'm going to make some garlic butter to brush on top of our croissants. So that is just 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter, and I have a couple cloves of garlic in here. I actually have 3 because mine are pretty small, right inside my garlic press. And I'm just gonna add those into the butter over about like medium-low heat and just allow it to melt together. There we go. This is a new garlic press. I gotta get a hold on it. So I have the heat over medium-low, and once this is all melted together, I'll brush this on top of my croissants with a pastry brush. I also prepared my croissants just by slicing them in half and laying them out evenly on a baking tray. After about 45 minutes, I removed my steaks from the sous vide and I placed them onto a paper towel lined plate and just patted them dry because my next step is to sear them in a cast iron skillet, and you don't want to steam your steaks, you want to create a nice crusty exterior. My cast iron skillet was preheated over high heat. It was smoking hot, so I added in a couple tablespoons of olive oil and then placed the steaks inside. After a minute and a half on the first side, I flipped them over for another minute and a half on the second side. And then I used my tongs to help create a crust on the perimeter of the steaks as well. Before slicing up my steak, I allowed it to rest on a plate just loosely covered in foil for about 10 to 15 minutes. During this time, I popped my buttered croissants under the broiler just for a few minutes on low. Watch them very carefully, you don't want them to go too far, but they turned out lovely and golden brown. After my filet mignon rested, I sliced it against the grain into thin, tender strips. I piled this incredible looking beef onto the bottom of each of my 4 croissants. And then top them with a couple slices of mild provolone cheese. These went back under the broiler. You can see I actually moved my oven rack a little bit higher this time. The temperature was still on low, but I kept a very close eye on this cheese. I wanted it to get nice and melty, but not burn. And of course, you don't want to burn the edges of your buns or crisp up the beef too much. The final step was to place a top onto each one of my sandwiches, and I was so ready to dig in. My kitchen smells absolutely phenomenal, and I cannot wait to dive into this sandwich. It looks so good. Here we go. That filet is so velvety. The reason why it's one of my favorite cuts is because no matter if you get it cooked rare all the way to pretty much well done, you're gonna have that tender, velvety texture, and I just love that so much. Then you get that little bit of savory flavor from the garlic butter on the flaky croissants with the melty cheese over top. Feel free to play around with whatever kind of cheese you wanna use, but this is amazing. You have to give it a try. Thank you so much to the Pennsylvania Beef Council for sponsoring today's video. Don't forget to visit pabeef.org for your all things beef resource. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, follow me on Instagram at Ann's Family Recipe, and give this video a thumbs up if you liked my filet mignon sandwiches. Thank you so much for joining me here in my kitchen, and I'll see you again soon with another family recipe.